How's it going, guys? Vaibhav here from Gen Tech, and welcome to a camera comparison between the Huawei P30 Lite and the Redmi Note 7 from Xiaomi. I'm recording this from the front-facing cameras on both of these smartphones at 1080p resolution. Now, I'm quickly going to get up and give you guys an overall idea of how both of these cameras film, as well as how they capture audio from the microphones on the phones. But with that being said, we're now going to move into the primary camera specifications, followed by photos and video samples from the primary cameras. So the Huawei P30 Lite has a triple camera setup with a wide-angle lens and a front selfie snapper rated at 32 megapixels. On the other hand, we've got Xiaomi's Redmi Note 7 with a dual camera primary setup and a front 13 megapixel selfie unit. To test the cameras, let's start with a flower sample. I think here the detail being picked up by the P30 Lite is greater. The flower was actually red in color, so neither phone gets the color spot on. With AI turned on, the vibrancy from the P30 Lite picks up, whereas on the Note 7 it's a more subtle change. I think looking at these pictures side by side, the more attractive one does seem from the Huawei. With this next photo though, the Redmi Note 7 controls the exposure levels better. I think the bright photo from the P30 Lite is not as true to life as the Note 7's. Interestingly, with AI, the P30 Lite detected this scene to be a cloudy one, whereas the Redmi Note 7's AI detected this as a monument, which is more of what the photo has. The AI itself doesn't make a huge change, but even with it, the Redmi Note 7's photo is more true to life. Now we'll move to a more complex photo. There's a lot going on here, and with these samples you can tell that the dynamic range is better from the P30 Lite. With AI on, the Note 7's photo is much better than the one without its AI. And if you take a closer look, the photo from the Note 7 is a lot sharper, whereas the one from the P30 Lite is muddier, especially with detail in the shrubs. What the P30 Lite has over the Note 7 is the wide-angle lens. This is a neat addition for you to capture a wider field of view. While the photo that comes out is not as sharp as the traditional sensor, it does give you that extra versatility. And of course, the AI enhances the color but doesn't have a profound effect. This sample here is to highlight the Redmi Note 7's higher 48 megapixel sensor. These are both taken on the standard modes, but this next one is taken on the Note 7's 48 megapixel mode. There's definitely an increase in detail being captured if you look at the tile lines on the building. But if you take both the P30 Lite's image and the Note 7's 48 megapixel image and zoom in, while there is a difference in detail, the Note 7 capturing more of it, it's not a very big difference. I thought it would be interesting to test the zoom capabilities of both of these phones too. This is at the one-time zoom where the Note 7 has more sharpness, and with the AI the change is more visible on the Note 7. The vibrant and bright image from the Note 7 is definitely more pleasing to the eye. This is at the two-time zoom capability from both the phones, where clearly the Note 7 has the advantage, and with the AI turned on, not much of a difference is seen once again. And at the maximum zoom, the P30 Lite has less noise but can only zoom in 6 times, whereas the Redmi Note 7 can go 8 times. But with this photo sample comes more noise, and AI once again doesn't make a big difference. Next, we'll get on to testing the edge detection from the cameras. Of objects, I think both phones do a good job with blur. The background on the P30 Lite is maybe a bit too blown out, and edge detection is a bit softer, but the P30 Lite's edge detection though is consistent, whereas the Redmi Note 7 couldn't blur the portion on the left next to the tree bark after multiple attempts. Here's a look at portrait mode for people, where I think both phones are doing very well. The sample from the Redmi Note 7 is more detailed, is a bit more brightened up, and the blur processing is better, although it's hard to point out a clear winner here, and I think much of it comes down to personal preference. As for selfies, it's clear that the P30 Lite has the edge with colors and detail. There's an AI mode for both, which to be honest doesn't look good from either. When using portrait mode, I think both phones have a fair bit of beautification going on, but the blur processing is better from the Note 7, as seen from the right side with the hair processing and on the left side towards my ear. Again, there's a mode with AI available with portraits, but to be frank, it doesn't do much either. With that, we'll move to nighttime samples. Here the Redmi Note 7 is again doing a better job at colors and exposure, and with the phone's night mode, again the Redmi Note 7 comes out on top even though it introduces a fair bit of noise in the photo. I think the colors from the P30 Lite are just very exaggerated and do not look realistic. Here's a photo with both phones doing an equally good job. The Redmi Note 7 sample just seems to have a bit more sharpness, but with AI the P30 Lite is doing a better job than the Redmi Note 7. This might be a case of better stabilization when taking a night mode sample on the Huawei P30 Lite compared to the Redmi Note 7 from Xiaomi. And in this very dark scenario, while none of the photos in particular stand out, the sharpness from the Redmi Note 7 is better. With night mode enabled, colors are better captured on the Note 7, whereas on the P30 Lite, there's evidence of aggressive sharpening. I've noticed the Redmi Note 7 does very well with handling lights and exposure in the night. Like here, we see the P30 Lite struggle, and so does the wide-angle lens, even though it does add that versatility. Even with its night mode, it doesn't fix things too much, but one thing I do want to point out is the Note 7's inconsistent night mode. On many occasions, I found the night mode feature to not work, which is something that requires a software fix as soon as possible. I also tested maximum zoom levels from either phone here, and again, I would give the P30 Lite the edge, but maybe because it's zooming in less. With night mode, there's a huge difference from the P30 Lite, but unfortunately, I couldn't test the night mode on the Note 7 in this case because it wouldn't work again. For selfies here, it is the Note 7 that does better. Again, I tried the AI mode, which doesn't affect results much if at all, and portrait mode is also much better from the Redmi Note 7, both without and with AI enabled. While we're at it, I also wanted to test the flash capabilities of both of these phones, where I think the P30 Lite captures the subject color better, whereas the Redmi Note 7 does a better job with the background. So with that, it's time for video. Both phones can capture 1080p video, which is more stable from the P30 Lite but sharper from the Note 7. With the P30 Lite, you can use the wide-angle lens for video with a totally different dynamic altogether, but again, the quality is not as good as the traditional lens. While running, the Note 7 does a better job with stabilization when it comes to using the standard lens, but with the wide-angle lens, the P30 Lite is more stable, although with a big drop in quality. So that's about it for this one. Let us know which phone you prefer down in the comments and tell us what other comparisons you'd like to see next. Subscribe for more, and thanks for watching. This was Vaibhav, and I'll see you in the next one. Adios.